Hey everyone, I'm Julia from UXPressia. UXPressia is an online collaborative tool that can help you visualize your customer journeys, create personas and epoch maps, analyze touchpoints in multi-channel interactions, and invite teammates to collaborate with you in real time. And you can do that all with the use of more than 100 templates we've created for you. Today, we will be walking through the case of improving the website user flow with the use of journey mapping. Our speaker not only teaches classes on experience, UX, and interaction design, but also holds masters in media psychology and is actively involved in ethical design, inclusion, and human tech. So without further ado, welcome everyone, Tiziana D'Agostino.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Julia, for your nice introduction. You can find me on LinkedIn. I will have my contact information repeated later, so it will be there, and I will share my slides, so you're going to be able to keep it if that's helpful for you. So I want to start out really quickly by explaining exactly what a UX psychologist is, because I know that not everybody really knows what it is. But it's pretty simple. So it's basically the happy marriage between psychology, design, and UX. So in other words, a UX psychologist will apply principle of psychology to digital product design for creating an optimal user experience. So how do you do that? Well, that's pretty simple. You take different kinds of psychology, mainly cognitive psychology that studies what you think, how you think, behavioral psychology that talks about how we behave, media psychology that includes how media affects our behavior and emotion, and finally, social psychology that is explaining how social influence affect behavior. You mix in good design practices, you finishing it off with some empathy, and then by putting all these ingredients together, you can create the perfect product. The perfect product means that not only is delightful and pleasant for your user, but is also viable for the business and feasible as far as the technical aspect is concerned. However, sometimes you can't start from scratch and create this amazing product. In fact, most of the time you're gonna, especially working as a consultant, you're gonna need to start fixing some issues or an interface that doesn't work very well. And this is exactly the example that I'm gonna share with you today. So I wanted to demonstrate, hopefully with my case study, I wanted to show how sorry, I'm trying to move this now. Okay. How your journey map can come to the rescue when you see that there is a big problem, but it may be a little bit difficult to being able to show the client where the problem is. Not because the clients are not smart enough, but they just so involved with their project that they can't see the problems. So I'm going to walk you through who the client was, what was the big problem, a little bit of the research we did, and kind of the beginning start when we kind of charted out the original task flow. And then from here, we figured out what the opportunities were. We designed a new floor, we made a case for using a journey map, and then the result. So the client is a nonprofit organization here in San Diego, California, and they're a nonprofit, and they're located in the heart of Little Italy, and they are presenting themselves as a perfect meeting point for people that are interested in Italian culture, Italian language, events, and things like that. The biggest problem for this company, it was that their website was really outdated. It wasn't working well. But the biggest problem of all is that they have very limited user research. They had no usability testing performed. And the only metrics that they were using is basically were analytics. I don't know how familiar you are with analytics, but analytics measure how many people come to your website, how many people leave, at what point they leave, and those kind of things, which is really important, but it doesn't give you a very good picture of why people are leaving the website without purchasing a class, for example, or why they only stay a few minutes. It just tell you the facts. It doesn't show you the reason, which is why you should always follow analytics with usability testing. But that was not the case. So this was the first big problem we had to fix. The fact that they really have no idea who their customer were, which is kind of weird because obviously they do have a lot of data. They never really went through it. So that was the first thing we did. We started out, I started out with a survey and start asking, first of all, some basic demographic question. What's your age range? Have you ever attended class? What's your gender? Those kind of information that you would think are basic, but the client did not have it all. And in fact, they were very surprised when the results came in about the average student for their classes was over 60. So they thought that the average person would be like middle age or maybe even younger. So that was a big shock for them. I also talked to some of the people that fill out the survey because once again, survey adjusts data, even though a little better than analytics. But I did want to hear from actual people, and they all mentioned that the website was not very easy to use, was not very friendly. It was kind of hard to find all the information they wanted. So I already knew that there was a problem. Now, so once I have the research done, the most important thing you wanted to start is by creating a new persona. So a persona is basically an aggregate of all the information you got from your research and kind of condense in one. So you're basically putting a face to a bunch of data. So the average student, if you will, it was in a demographic, it was mainly female, about 65 years old in San Diego. And then usually they are college degrees. They're not as tech savvy as you can imagine. The Italian language knowledge is pretty low. So they, you know, the most popular classes are the beginning classes. And then they are very motivated. Some of them go to classes because they want to learn the language before a trip. And they're really frustrated because the current website was very difficult to navigate. And most of their customers are not always on the phone or checking out apps. So that's why I mentioned that they were not incredibly tech savvy. So the first thing I did, I went through the flow. I picked one particular task, which was enrolling in a class, because that's probably the most crucial task for all. They are, so, you know, because they are nonprofit, beside donation, they survive thanks to the language classes. So it's very important that that's a very flawless, frictionless process. And that was not the case at all. So in the best case scenario, it would take about 12 to 13 steps to complete enrollment, which is insane if you think about it, right? And in the worst case scenario, you can go up to like 17 or 18 steps. So obviously that was not a good flow. So I'm gonna demonstrate why it was not a good flow, because the website, the new website will be up this weekend, hopefully. So the old site is still up. So I have the pleasure to show you that flow live to see how fun it was. So, okay, so this is a website that you'll get to. So first of all, obviously the look is pretty dated. So, but even beyond that, because again, look is important, but if the experience is easy, then it wouldn't be an issue. So I assumed that I was a first-time person coming, a first-time student coming to website, never been here before, and I want to find a class that will be pretty basic so I can learn some basic Italian to go to my trip. So the first place I will go, it will be our classes. That sounds pretty obvious. And notice that there is a lot of options, but I'm not really sure what they mean. What do you mean for online and private? Register online? So I just click on classes, hoping that there was a little bit more explanation of it. So when I got here, I saw a little tiny bit of explanation, and he told me that if you want to pick a class, you may want to go look at the class description, the schedule, and then there's some categories here. But once again, I'm not really understanding the difference between register online and Italian for adults. What's the difference between the two? So I went to class description because I want to find out what classes are offered. But when I click on description, all it did, it opened a PDF with all the classes that they're describing here, but it's really annoying because it opened in the same exact window. And I can't have it open at the same time. And in fact, some of the people I talked to, some of the customers I talked to, they were saying that if they wanted to find out what class to take, they would have to open the schedule on the different tab and keep it kind of side by side. So I felt that that was already a problem. So, but let's say I read the class and I decided, okay, I wanted to get maybe like a basic grammar class. So I'm still not 100% sure, but I am an adult. So I'm gonna click Italian for adults. And so it will load, and this is what I get, Italian for adult. Now, nowhere on this page is very obvious that regular class have the same exact thing as grammar class. They do write it here, but honestly, most people don't read every single word in a page. They kind of skim to the main links. So, but even then, I don't know what specialty classes are or conversation classes are. So I'm still gonna kind of take a leap of faith and I'm gonna click regular classes. Now, when I click regular classes, you will notice that sure enough, there is a description. So that's the first kind of question. Why, when I choose look at class description, why wasn't I sent to this page? Also, here is just a description. I can automatically click any class and register, which is kind of annoying, but okay, there is a register here button. That's great. I'm going to click register here. And once again, I'm not registration. I have to make one more choice and choose register for regular classes, for conversation, or for specialty classes. So I was already in the regular class, I thought. So one extra page is really not necessary. And so I click register online and I'm still not done. So let's say I want to pick, I don't know, which one was it? Let's pick one. Let's say beginner Italian. Let's choose that one. So I'm going to click on the class and give me a description. Now I have to make one more choice for date or time. And sure, is available. Let me see, Saturday is available. Sure, it is. That's great. Then I will go add to cart. So it's also pretty slow loading. So notice that as I have add to cart, let me take that one away. So I have my class here. That's great. I'm going to go to checkout. So as I go to checkout, I have the chance to log in, but I'm a first-time user, so I definitely don't have it. So I can fill out all this information, and then I get to membership status. And I noticed that, hey, you need to be a member to enroll in a class. Well, you didn't tell me that before. That's another frustrating moment because I can't complete my registration without having the registration. Let's say, okay, let's see if I can register today. And then he says, well, I'm purchasing the membership. Make sure the item is in the cart, but I don't see in this page anywhere where I can add in the cart. So I have to go back to the navigation and notice there is a button called membership. When you go to membership, you're gonna need to pick which membership you want. And I'm clicking, I'm just a person, I will say individual. Then you click individual, you're still not done. You have to choose individual, you have to actually add it to the cart. I will add to the cart, it will take you back to the cart. Now you have it in your cart, you go back to checkout and all the information you already entered would be gone. So you would have to start over to do it again, and they will force you to create an account before you can actually submit the payment. So as you can see, it was pretty difficult to be able to do that. So this is why I felt that those particular flow was not working very well. But again, you can tell as many times as you want to, you need to also show it. So this is kind of what, probably this doesn't make too much sense to you unless you've been in UX for a while. This is called a screen flow. So it's basically a diagram that show you how all the different sections of the site are connected to each other. Obviously, this is not very easy to read. And I can tell you, when I first show it to my student, they don't have any idea what I'm talking about. So I can't really show this to a client. I did it for my own benefit because it's really easy for me to see how everything connected and how can simplify it. But this will not really work with a client. It will not show them how problematic the flow is. And so there's journey map to the rescue, because journey maps are a crucial step in this process. When you realize that there are problems, it may be very obvious to you that there are problems and the flow doesn't work very well, but it's difficult sometimes to convince your client that, hey, we need to do a complete overhaul. This is not working. With the journey map, because it's a visual tool, as I'm going to show you in a second, you get much easier buy-in from the client. You also get increased empathy because you're actually demonstrating what a person is going through, and hopefully increase empathy for the user that have to go through this really difficult product. And it's data backed because a journey map is based on usability testing that you do. So besides doing it myself, I have other people go through that flow to see how exactly they were going about. And like I said, it was between about 13 to 17 steps as far as the problem is concerned. So, and to create a good one that actually will work, you need to talk to your real user and have them actually use the site. You want to add depth. So don't just choose the steps, but you also want to think about emotion and what the person's going through. And ideally, you can add visual, like screenshots, so that once again, make it really obvious to understand where the problem is. So again, 4 steps. Start with users, observe the customer using the app and site. You want to write down every single step in detail. And finally, you visualize in a map so you can share with your client. So what should a journey map have? Now, journey map come in a lot of different forms. If you Google journey maps, you can see a million different variations. But you will notice that those 6 elements usually are always there. Number 1, who is your persona? Who is the typical user that will use that particular product? Also, what their specific goal? Because for every goal, you want to have a different journey map. You want to visualize that path, 1 per person, 1 per goal. You also want to start out with breaking down the timeline with different steps. You want to mark behavior and action, what happens at each steps. You want to talk about what is the customer thinking and feeling. You want to highlight the pain points or problems, and you want to highlight the opportunities, what you can do to make it better. So this was the original flow as I broke it down, and I can do this if I can make it bigger from here. Otherwise, I can go straight to that, but no, I can't. But just to show you, those are all the different steps. So this will be when you begin in the journey, you get to the website, then you get to the first page, then you don't know what to choose, and you go on. And this is actually one of the worst case scenario, in which was 17 steps. And notice that those horizontal lines are called channels or tracks. Some people call it that. And they all have a specific meaning behind it. So most likely you're gonna start out with a different steps, right? So, notice that it's hard for you to read, but the first step was you're aware of the website, then there was onboarding, then there was researching the class, enrolling, and final checkout. And notice that each one of them should be no more than probably 1 or 2 steps, and actually they're dragged on quite a bit. The second one is show you what kind of process it is, which means some processes are linear, so you go from point A to point B. Some process you go back and forth. For example, when I had to check when the customer had to check the classes, the description, they had to go look at the PDF and then they had to come back. So as you can see, I set it up as a double-headed arrow. Then you want to talk about, okay, what is the process? Basically, what are the people doing in each of individual steps? Just really literally clicking on that button, or, you know, the site showed this page, something really, really basic. That will allow me to kind of highlight the problem for each of those steps. And not every step has to have a problem, but in this case, most of them did. I also placed the screenshots for every single step so that, once again, you can really easily see. And when you actually present a map, each of those pictures can be blown up so they can actually see better. Now, what I think is the most effective part of a journey map is this lane right here with all the smiley and emoji, because again, at a glance, it tells you immediately how the user was feeling at any moment. And you can probably notice that the majority of the colors are on the red side. And red, in this particular case, doesn't mean happy, right? So now, right underneath, there is exactly what the person was thinking and feeling. And again, this is based on what I observed during the usability testing. And finally, the green one, it will give me the area that I can improve. It's almost like notes to self. You can add a lot of other lanes depending on complex is your, or tracks, depending how complex your project is. For example, you could have an area where you can assign tasks to different team members, or you can have an area where you define deadline to fix. You can have a lane that it will allow you to get priority set. So you can really, most of the time, you can add as many lanes as you want, but those are really kind of the fundamental one. Obviously, I don't have to explain you, this is really not a good flow, right? So if you want to focus just on the emotional part of the flow, you can see that Rosie, our user, is really not happy. In fact, there's probably the best he get is like acceptance and neutral, which are probably those two. Those are the only stages that are a little higher. Everything else is either annoyed, angry, enraged, all those kind of things. And again, you may want to exaggerate a little bit, but once again, it was based on how frustrated the user felt. So I also look at the analytics, because even though I say by themselves, they don't work very well, I did look at the bounce rate. The bounce rate is how many people come to the website and then they leave without doing what you want them to do, in this case, buying a class. June, July, and August are the month in which enrollment was open, starting in June and closing in August, because in September, that's when the classes was starting. And you can see that the bounce rate is pretty high. It's like about 40%, more 40 or more, an average, I would say, of 40%. Okay, or 35 to 40%. Well, it's not huge as far as an e-commerce site, which have an average of probably 65%. It is pretty big for this site, because that means, for example, in July, 43, almost 44% of the people that came to the page left without purchasing classes. And especially on the older site, the majority of the space was dedicated to classes. There was really not that much more. So that tells me that a lot of people maybe came to the site and was discouraged by that whole process. So once I have those data in my hand, it was a lot easier to convince my client that, hey, we need to do a better flow. This is not working. We need to completely overhaul and do it a different way. So again, I did show this to the client, but it's not as easy as a map. So I also create a better map. But this is just like a little side map on how I feel the classes and all the pages should be organized. So I still start sketching. Even now, I think sketching is the best way to begin a project. And then you bring it to the computer. And then from here, I recreated the map. And now this is the new map that I generated. I didn't put, that was my first version of the map, but you can see that now from 17 steps, we went down to 10. And notice that again, the feeling is a lot better. There's still a few pink area, annoyance, but those were very, very easy fix for the most part. So, I wrote down the problem and what the solution was. And so in my second version, after all those problems were fixed, when I actually put screenshot in here, you can see that now there is only one annoyance here, and there's nothing I can do about it. And the biggest annoyance is that the client at this point in time still want to keep his class description in a separate PDF. That's still something that I think it should be changed. It should be like a regular page. We'll link back to the different school. But for now, phase one, that's not going to happen. So that's why it's still there, and it's still kind of a little bit sad, a little bit of a sad phase. But now, just to kind of show you what the flow will be, and again, it's not up yet, but it will be hopefully this weekend. It will be a lot easier because you will go to the homepage, you will click on classes. In classes, you will get a lot of different information about general classes. You also will get a very big notice that says you have to be a member before you can register. There will be the breakdown of category, but also there will be the whole list of class in the same page. So if you're not sure if you want a grammar class or what specialty class, you will simply have to scroll the page and see all the different classes that were opted. Now, again, you still have to go and check out the PDF to see the description, but at least you open in a separate tab so you don't lose your spot whenever you're there. Then from there, you will click whatever class you want, was one single click, and notice that it will show you the description, but it also will give you all the options, and it will give you a chance to add to cart immediately. So you don't have to go to any other link. Furthermore, other things that the class will have the name of the teacher that will teach it, and it will be a link. So you could go see who's the teacher, read their bio, and then you could see from the teacher page, you can immediately go back to the class because it will be linked back to the class they're teaching. So you will be back here if you want to. And then once you do add to cart, you would have a floating cart on the side. So instead of bringing you to a whole new page, you will get a little drawer that kind of open and it show you, okay, do you want to continue shopping or do you want it to go to checkout? If you keep on wanting shopping, you can just click here and go back to shop. Now you still need to go get your membership. It's pretty obvious from this page. There's a big warning. They're like, hey, by the way, you need to be a member. But in case you miss it, you can also go from your checkout and you go to membership. It would allow you to buy the membership here in one page. So you can choose whatever option you want. You will go back to your cart. The cart, remember all the information you already enter. You will then you're not forced to make an account, even though it is encouraged because they allow you to keep track of everything you bought, especially when you bought the membership. The membership is yearly, and one of the big problems that we have right now with the current site is that people keep on calling because they don't remember when they bought the membership. So once this system is going to be in place for a while, then they can always go back to their account and see when they bought that membership. So they're never going to have to remember when that happened. Also, the membership is hard to see here, but there is a button on top that is always there that says membership. So you can always access this from any page in the site. And then finally, the billing details are pretty easy. You can click, you can choose is one page checkout. You can choose any payment you want, and then you get a success page that reminds you, hey, you had, you bought, this particular product, and you also get an email that will confirm the purchase. So even without reading all the detail, if you focus only on the steps, you can see that there is a huge difference. So, and I'm sorry, I cut off the joy emoticons right there, but so emoji, sorry. The old flow has 17 steps, and each one was really very frustrating. the new flow only have 10. And even though there's a few things that can still be fixed, again, it's going to be easier to say, hey, you see, people are still annoyed on these steps. I think we should do, you should change this. I think you should be more on a, more on a HTML page instead of a PDF or something like this. Again, it's very easy to convince when you see all the smiling face and then a sad face. So, which is one of the things I love, especially as far as journey map. So the whole idea behind a journey map is to put some visual in front of the data. Most people don't understand data, don't enjoy data, don't figure it out how it works. And especially data is very abstract. As humans, we love stories. We love storytelling. So when I see something like this, I honestly don't even need to see what's happening, what kind of step it is. I can immediately tell you that this person is not happy at all. I don't need any other data to show you that, like, wow, this is a long process and this person is definitely not happy. So those are kind of the tools that you could have to convince your client. And again, they're data backed. So it's not that I made it up. This is really stuff that happened when a customer were trying to enroll in a class. And this is exactly how they felt while they're trying to go through this process. So just kind of to sum it up a little bit, the reason why you wanted to get journey maps is because you get a much easier buy-in. Because again, they're backed by research, so their data. If you can get videos during your usability testing while they're actually experiencing all this problem, that's even better. Because it's really hard to argue with somebody that have a very confused face or very perplexed. It's pretty obvious to see somebody struggling. So that helps quite a bit. And the whole goal here is to help your client to empathize with your customer. And I'm not saying it because clients are mean or they don't care about the customer, but if you've never seen it, you have no idea how hard it is. Because for you, it's very easy. You've done it, right? You design it, you know exactly how it works. So it's very hard to understand that other people may not find it as easy as you do. So using a journey map really help you to put the map, like the journey, in the perspective of the customer, not of the business. And it really help you see it from their point of view, which is also why I really like, I really like the emotional part of it, like both the emoji, but also the thinking and feeling section where you can actually express what the customer was saying. So now you see in this picture, this is just an illustration, of course, and they have a few different things. But notice that they do, even though they don't have the little emoji part, notice that they do have customer thoughts. I would add also feelings, because I think we make decisions based on feelings 95% of the time, in fact, probably more than that. So it is very important to try to capture the feeling of your customer as they're going through. For example, one thing that, for example, matters quite a bit. Notice that at the end of the new flow, the last steps, you are pretty happy. You may not be jumping for joy, but you're pretty serene, you're happy, you're excited about your new class. In the previous one, you go from anger to annoyance. Now, why does that matter? Well, generally speaking, when you go through an experience, humans remember the highs, the lows, and the ending. Those are the things that are more memorable. And the ending has a huge influence on how you remember the whole experience. Think about a vacation you took. Even if it was a great vacation, but something really bad happened at the end, you lost your plane, you missed your plane, or you lost your baggage, whatever that is, that negative emotion at the end of your trip would actually taint the rest of the trip. And you're gonna remember that trip in a less favorable light, than if you would have ended in a happy note. And vice versa. So if you have there's a bunch of like bad things that happen, or at least not as exciting, but the end of the trip is amazing, you're going to remember that trip is amazing. So the fact that the first flow ended with anger, rage, and disappointment, probably not a good sign, because this customer going to remember this experience, and therefore the company, in a very negative way. So that's why it's so important. So if you need to sell on the advantage of a journey map on anybody or yourself, just understand that it's an easy way to share an understanding of the step with the whole team. They don't need to be technical. They don't need to be designer. It's really easy to see, even for anybody else that is not in the design field. Is also very easy to identify very specific problem. So, otherwise you may just say, yeah, well, the enrollment has some issues. Okay, but where are the biggest issue? By using a map, you can pinpoint to say, this is this place where we can make a change. This is another page where you can make the changes. And is a great basis for taking decision, because you can even assign a severity percentage to each problem. So for example, it's like, okay, this maybe is not as important, but this is really crucial. So that's probably the first thing we should fix. And then and that help you identify pain points, and again, take care of them right away. And finally, it also would allow you to find feature opportunities. What I mean by that is that not only you find the problem, but you also find what is called sometimes opportunities, in which maybe the customer suggests something that you never thought about it, maybe an extra feature, or a different flow. So with using a user map, a customer map, you and your team as well could come up with opportunities like, hey, why don't we do this instead? So hopefully that is a really good convincing argument for using Journey Map. Journey Map are really easy to use. If you're familiar with UXPressia, you know that they have great templates that you can use to create your map, so you don't have to start from scratch. If you do like to start from scratch, you totally can, as long as you understand the elements of a journey map. That's really great. And I also have some resources for you in case you want to learn a little bit more. So there is a couple of really good articles. There are tons, but those are probably the one I like the best as far as how to create customer journeys. I also like how B-Work talked about how to add a psychological approach to journey maps. UXPressia itself had a really nice article on how to present journey maps, because even that sometimes is an art. You want to don't just want to show it, hey, this is a journey map, but you really want to go through it and trying to transmit all those emotions those person was going through as they were going through. Also, this is another great article, an introduction to customer journey map by Stephanie Walter. She actually wrote an ebook about customer mapping, journey mapping, that you can get on Amazon, or if you're a subscriber with SidePoints, you can get it there. As far as books, I'm a big book person, so I had to recommend books. But Mapping Experience is excellent. It talks about way more than journey maps, but is a really, really good book, and explain you why you should mapping, what the advantage of it, as well as how to do it. The other book is because, again, sometimes it's really difficult to articulate your design decision, and most, not as much explaining it, but convincing or persuading your the higher up that you should actually pursue that road. This is another excellent book that will help you in that process. And finally, I posted 2 videos. The first one is from Gene Kalbeck, which wrote Mapping Experience, and he talks about how a customer journey map will take you from insight to action. And then there is a customer journey map UX masterclass, which is about an hour. from Jaco van der Heever. And again, he will give you really, really good insight about journey maps and why you should use and how you should use it. They're both available on YouTube. And like I said, I will give you the slides, and I can even give you a separate PDF for the resources. So if you're interested in learning more, you can definitely learn more. So with that, I'm gonna thank you, and I'm gonna ask if you have any questions.
Tiziana, thank you so much. A great case overview, and thank you so much for sharing so many resources. The conversation in the chat is flowing like crazy, so I'm trying to keep up with everything going on. And we actually have some questions, and yes, answering all the questions regarding the sources. As Tiziana mentioned, we will be sharing all the links and all the materials shared throughout the presentation. So don't worry if you didn't have any time to save them at the moment. So the first one is from Stella. What software do you use to make a user flow? And here, I guess we're referring to the flow that you mentioned, the cumbersome one. You mentioned in the very beginning that you won't actually show to the users.
I use a tool that pretty much nobody else uses for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's awesome. It's called diagrams.net. I'm going to write in the chat, diagrams.net. You obviously can use any tool, but the reason I like diagrams.net is one, is free. So that's always a plus. Is an online tool, but you can also download the desktop version. And it has pretty much every single shape you can ever desire. So it is a very, very nice tool, super easy to use. You don't really need to learn anything, you know, and you don't know anything about, you don't want to spend time learning a tool. Diagrams.net would definitely help you. So, because it was purposely done for diagrams. So that's something I really like. Oh, you're welcome.
Right. Awesome. Stella, I hope that answers your question. And yeah, journey maps, as Tiziana mentioned, are built in UXPressia, so feel free to check it out. We have one more question from Giuseppe here. How can you link story mapping technique with journey mapping technique?
Okay, so this is the way I see it. Now, some people interpret it different. So a story map usually is based more on storytelling. So I see it as a precursor to a journey map. So a story map is usually done much, at least the way I do it, is much more like rough. So we're talking about sticky notes and things like that. So kind of following the story arc. So you start out with the beginning, and then there is the incident that kind of inspire your action. Then there is the action, the problem, and then kind of the resolution. And so that kind of helped me position the different experience that I saw in the testing. Because obviously you take a lot of notes during testing, and that's kind of a way to kind of cluster them all together. And then once you cluster them all together, I use the story map to kind of organize the different actual steps of the journey, and then I convert it into journey map. So I don't know if everybody else follow this particular workflow, but for me, it works really well.
Okay, Giuseppe, I hope that answers your question.
I hope so.
And the next one is from Natalie here. Has anyone, and you, Tiziana in particular, found a clever way to ID the emotion? I always feel like I'm projecting. Does anyone outright ask customers how they feel at each step, or are you generally guessing? What's your experience?
I think it's a combination of both. So I think that, again, I believe that the best user experience professional have empathy, and they're kind of able to connect with people, but there are also questions you can ask after every task. And usually during usability testing, at the very least, after the test, you want to ask your customer to rate how easy it was. There is also a method to do it after every task. So you give it kind of a scale between 1 and 5 and say how easy it was, or how did you find this task, from very difficult to very easy. So at the very least, you can get a hint. But watching somebody struggle, I think is really easy to see. It's maybe harder to see somebody is ecstatic or anything like that. But I would say that combining those two things, it will give you kind of a clear picture. Obviously, you don't want, to guess, but like, let's say that the user tester is not expressing what they're thinking. So that's the time for you to work almost like a therapist. It's like, oh, what are you thinking? You seem confused. Is there anything that surprised you? So you kind of want to guide this. Ideally, a good participant will speak out loud and he will tell you everything that goes in their head. But if they don't, then you can kind of, again, pretend you're a therapist. What are you thinking about right now? How does that make you feel? So, I mean, not obviously like that. That sounds very patronizing, but, in a way that kind of look less patronizing, but at least to give you that information. So, and then at the end, again, once you finish with all this, I always ask in, I personally like the UMX light scale. So I'm gonna write it here because it's only 2 questions. So it's based on the system usability score, the SAS scale, but it's only 2 questions instead of 10. So the 2 questions are basically is this application site or whatever fulfill my needs, again, from 0 to 7 or 0 to 5. And I find this very easy to use. So there are 2 questions, they're scored. So they don't have to necessarily tell them. You can even leave the room while they fill it out in case you worry that they are concerned about upsetting you. And that give you also some kind of numeric value of satisfaction. Because like you said, it's hard to say, oh, how happy are you, right? But if you're very specific, then that definitely helps to bring some more numbers in. And you can show your clients, say, hey, look, most people find it really hard to use. So probably we should do something about it. Hope that answered the question.
Great. Let us know in the chat if it does. And we have another question from Nicholas here. You sort of covered it when you tried to present a selling point for journey mapping, but still, what would be the single best signal or trigger for using this particular technique? There is a sea of techniques with huge overlap. Why would you hire the user journey map for and when?
I like to use journey mapping. Actually, there are 2 different ways I like to use it. I really like to use it when it's the redesign, because once again, like when I've originally asked who's your main demographic, their answer were vastly different than what we found out in our survey. So the clients are not always aware of what's going on. And especially in my particular case here, they didn't ever really do any usability testing. So it was all like the designer designed the site and then here it is, that's the site. So a user map, really a customer journey map really help you to bring into life. I was like, listen, look how difficult that is, right? These people are different. The other way I use it is to create an ideal map. So if it's a brand new product that obviously you can't test it because it doesn't exist, I use it to indicate what like my goal will be and then validate it with user testing. So, and mainly if you want one single reason why to use customer journey map, to get your client on board and make it visual. Because if you show them a diagram, they have no idea what you're talking about. If you show a bunch of happy faces or sad faces, that's kind of hard to say no to that. So, all right.
I see that Nicholas here commented. Thank you.
Oh,
so we have another question from Melanie here. Since you only did the new class checkout, how many more journey maps did you make? Old members and stuff like that. How do you deal with other journey maps?
Well, there are 2 different ways you can do this. So you can have separate journey maps for each task. And I personally like that because I think you need to focus on one thing at a time Otherwise, there are too many factors to calculate. But I know other people that what they do, they create one global journey map from beginning to end, as in like, you know, let's say it's an app from onboarding to offboarding all the way through. And for each area, then they have what is called submaps. So they have smaller journey maps for different tasks in the app. I personally like to have as just individual for each task that I think is relevant. I'm not going to do it for everything. So, you know, in my case, I actually, even the journey map was for like enrolling in a class. It kind of included the become a member part because you had to do it this way. So, but if you have an app with multiple crucial tasks, I would do more than one for sure.
And do you connect them somehow?
You can, if you want to. There is, you can make it again as a sub journey. And some applications allow you to do it automatically. So again, you have a global map of maps, if you will. And then for each each part is a link to the other smaller submap. So you could do it that way. I'm not really sure if UXPressia allow you to do that, but it does. Okay, perfect. So you can create your individual small task, the individual small task, and then you put it under this kind of global map, and you can just click on each individual sub journey. So I will put it together.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have another question from Yan here. How to integrate behavior data, if applicable, with journey map? Do you have any recommendations on that?
Well, again, there are a couple of different ways you could do that. You can create a whole new lane for it and explain why this is not working. You know, again, depends on the client. So some client care, some client don't. So I use it for sure, the behavioral data, I use it for sure in, you know, for my own decision. And if I can, I explain it to the client, say, hey, you know, this person is getting too overwhelmed because they're too much on their working memory and too much, you know, their cognitive load is too high. So they're very likely they're gonna give up. But some clients really don't care. They just want to know, okay, they give up, I don't really care why. So, you know, I generally speak, you know, I do it as a separate track or separate lane if is I feel is appropriate. And you don't have to show the client either. So you can definitely use it for your own benefits and fixing stuff and inspire your design based on what you know of, you know, behavior data. If that's, I'm not sure if I understood exactly what you're saying, but let me know if I didn't.
Yep, yep. Thank you for the advice.
Okay.
So
Great.
this is it answers the question. Oh, we have another question from Melanie here. So you only made one persona. How about the other users?
Okay, so I actually had more personas. There were in the whole project, there was about, I'm trying to remember, three. There were three different personas, actually two different personas. And again, their target audience was very homogeneous. And I felt that it was really important to use this particular persona because A is the larger group, demographic speaking. And two, because it's probably the group that has the most issue with technology. Like a younger generation, a younger demographic is probably will suffer less than an older demographic when the flow is not good. They will find a way to kind of get around. They will be still frustrated. I'm pretty sure that the frustration point is easier, but I think the older demographic will suffer more. And I may be wrong, but I noticed when we were testing, we had more older tester than younger tester, and we could see that the older tester were definitely more flustered than the younger one.
All right,
Yes.
Melanie, hope that gives you some idea what to use for your future projects. And yeah, with that, I actually don't see any more questions at the moment. And please do find the link to connect with Tiziana in the chat. I already sent it twice, so you will be able to find it. And with that, I guess we're actually ready to wrap up our today's session. If you want to see more events like this, make sure to check the upcoming ones at UXPressia.eventbrite.com or check the recordings we've got on this channel. Take care, and I will see you around.